What's up, Duval? It's your favorite Jaguar, Bucky Brooks, and this is Bleav in Jaguars, a podcast dedicated to our favorite team, the Jacksonville Jaguars. And today we are at the midpoint of the season. Around the league, there are a bunch of like mid-season awards being given out, and people are kind of breaking up the season. But because the Jaguars aren't on a bye week, we're going to try and fix the Jaguars, kind of like a mid-season tune-up, to see if we can get them ready to rock heading down the regular season stretch, even though we don't have time to get them on the practice field and do some of the things that we're going to propose. Before we talk about the mid-season fix and how Jazz can get back on track, let's shout out our sponsor, Bet Online, the world's most trusted betting platform, your number one source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, Bet Online provides you with all the action and the ability to watch games as they happen. With the largest selection of odds on everything from football, NBA, and college basketball, NHL to UFC and MMA. Head to BetOnline today to get in on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. BetOnline, the game starts here. Guys, the games have started. We're past the halfway point. The Jaguars are kind of struggling. I think there would be a mild understatement to say that. Sitting at 2-7, I think there's 5 or 6 other teams that are currently 2-7. And what we want to do right now is see how can we fix the Jaguars going forward. What are some of the biggest issues that are that's plaguing the team, and what can the coaching staff, what can the players do to maybe get back on track and finish strong despite stumbling out the gate. The number one thing that I'm gonna tell you is right now, like, this is a team that was built to be an offensive-led team. When you look at the way that the team was constructed, franchise quarterback in Trevor Lawrence spent a lot of money in the offseason to upgrade the weapons on the outside. Gabe Davis, you bring in Brian Thomas Jr., Christian Kirk, Evan Ingram. Offensive line remains relatively the same, but there's a lot of expectations that this team would finally light up scoreboards, put up close to 30 points, and really let their defense be in, I would say, like chase mode, meaning hunting sacks, getting interceptions, those things, because people are having to chase points against a high-powered offense. Well, that has not happened. The Jaguars have not been great on offense. They have not put up the kind of like points and production that you would expect from a team that has the talent that I mentioned. This is a team that is really struggling when it comes to any and everything. Points per game, 21.7. That's almost 7 points less than they are giving up. You talk about a team that is not converting at a high rate when it comes to third down conversion. You talk about 31.6%. That's not good enough. Even when I look at quarterback play, like Trevor Lawrence has 11 touchdowns, but only 6 interceptions, and he's been sacked 20 times. When we look at like the running game is over 100, but that's not what the top teams are doing. And like, honestly, when you just kind of look at all of the factors on offense, we're just not playing good enough. And when I look at the last handful of games that the Jaguars have played, there's been a common theme. The team is trailed by double digits, 10 or more early in games in the first quarter. Slow starts by the offense, 3 and outs, short drives, sputtering due to turnovers and penalties and blown assignments, just not being on it from the start. And what's crazy about it is anyone who knows Doug Peterson, anyone knows West Coast offense, football, not saying that they're running the pure West Coast, but they know that the first 15 plays of every game is scripted. And to kind of take you behind the scenes when it comes to scripting, these first 15, these are the plays that you run over and over and over again in practice. These are the plays that you feel great about. The players know how they're coming in, even though they may not come in the direct order. You kind of can anticipate, like, hey, this is how we're going to ease into the game. We know it. We've talked about it. We've done it. We put it on walkthroughs. We've done it on the practice field in team periods. This is how we're going to start the game. And despite all of that preparation for what we would say is a very critical part of the Jaguars' approach, they haven't been able to get off to these starts. And for me, when I look at this number, and this number is kind of crazy to believe, third down percentage in the first quarter, 25%. 1 out of every 4 third downs, the Jaguars are only converted. Like only 1 out of every 4 third downs are they converting. That means that they are messing up. I mean, they're messing up on some key medium yardage, long yardage situations where they can't sustain drives. They can't get on the field. Consequently, that hurts the defense because now the defense is playing more snaps than they're accustomed, than they want to, than they're built for. And eventually, everything has an expiration date. And you have a pitch count on everybody where they begin to fall off. And for the defense, they're playing too many plays because of the offense, the offensive ineptitude. So we talk about the slow starts, and there's been a lot of stuff that has been thrown out when I listened in on the press conferences with Doug Peterson. People talk about, can we go tempo, no huddle? Can we play faster? Can we give more to Trevor, let him call his own plays? All of those things. Man, whatever lane that you choose to drive in when it comes to fixing this offense, I would say before we can even get to the bells and whistles part, we got to fix how the offense is constructed. The offense right now, offensive line-wise, it took the offensive line about 6 or 7 weeks to gel, but they still haven't played at a level where they're dominating. They're playing okay. I think you could talk about like middle of the pack to top 20 level maybe, but it's still a team that can't run consistently when everyone in the building knows that you have to run. Those inability to make those 3rd and shorts, 4th and shorts, they gift wrap the opponent scoring opportunities and points, and it's deflating because this has been a theme for 2 seasons that this team cannot convert on 3rd and short situations. When we go back and further examine like why they're starting out so bad, we can talk about the penalties. I mean, just the penalties in themselves, false starts, holdings, all of these things happening on early downs. Man, you put this offense behind the chain significantly, hard to make it up. It's hard to make up a 15 yards on a 5-yard penalty. So now 1st and 10 goes from 1st to 15. It's hard for an offense to generate that many positive plays in succession to get a 1st down. When you think about a holding call or some of this other stuff, when it goes to 10 yards and it's 1st and 20, you can almost forget about it. We can punt right then. And even though I'm kind of being tongue-in-cheek when I say that, but it just really puts Trevor Lawrence at a disadvantage, having to throw against long yardage defenses that are set up to sit at the sticks, set up to jam the middle of the field, take away the sidelines, and force the quarterback to make what we call big boy throws. He has not been able to do that consistently, and because of that, too often the Jaguars are running to the sideline after just having 3 or 4 plays on offense. The other thing that I would say about this offense, so if we're talking about like just clean up the DBOs, the things that are beating us. And you talk about the turnovers, penalties, blown assignments, we can control that. We can take care of that part of it. I would say when you look at the way this team is constructed, the offensive line is fine. It's solid. I talked about it being middle of the pack to top 20, good enough if the quarterback is playing at a high level. And Trevor Lawrence has not been playing, I would say, at top 5, top 8 level in the game. He's shown some flashes and done some good things, but he hasn't done it consistently enough to the level that you would expect a guy who's going to be a $50 million quarterback to do it. Now, it's not on Trevor that he signed that contract and that they were willing to give him the money, but with that big money comes bigger and more lofty expectations. We expect him to play at a level that is fringe top 5 because that's what the pay kind of reflects. It represents that you are a borderline elite player. We're playing you not only as a franchise player, but we're paying you because you're a blue chip player that would carry blue chip grades across the league. Trevor Lawrence hasn't done that. So the first thing I want to do is I want to fix Trevor Lawrence by asking him, hey, man, what are the handful of concepts that you like, that you see, that you understand, that you can be aggressive, man, catching, ripping, and sticking the ball in a tight window? And then I'm going to build from there. What you want to see offensively is you want the quarterback to be comfortable. You want the quarterback to get off to a fast start. If this was basketball and we were having a practice or we were getting ready for a game, it is almost like I want to see Trevor Lawrence hit some layups before he starts shooting middies and before he goes behind the 3-point line and shoot threes. Too often, though, we're seeing Trevor have to kind of take these 3-point shots right away because early in the game, they haven't been able to convert the bunnies and the middies. And so they're now facing these long yardage situations, which aren't necessarily playing to his strength as a player, nor does it allow the defense to have to deal with the balanced approach. So the first thing I want to do is I want to fix Trevor Lawrence. I want to get his best concepts. I want to run them over and over and over again. It's going to be an interactive conversation where we're going back and forth. I'm asking him, I'm looking at tape, I'm scouring the tape from 2022 when he played well down the stretch, and I'm trying to figure out what are the best concepts that fit you back then, and if those same concepts fit you right now as you've evolved as a player. After we fix Trevor Lawrence, I think the other thing has addressed, we got to rank the players in terms of who deserves the ball. This game is really simple, right? Get the ball to your best players over and over and over again, and allow your best players to make the biggest impact on the game. Easier said than done. Sounds simple, harder to execute, but it has to be the focal point if you're the Jags. Now that you've played 9 games, you know exactly how the pecking order should be. You understand who are the go-getters, who are the guys that produce the explosive plays, who's trustworthy, who's dependable, who's all that other stuff that you're looking for as a playmaker, and then you build it backwards from there. You ask me the best player on offense right now, Brian Thomas Jr. Brian Thomas Jr. has delivered splash plays, explosive plays, highlight reel worthy plays, all of those things that you're supposed to do as a number 1 pick. He's done it in a splendid fashion. In fact, we've already carved out a little spot in the stadium for him where his name can go beside Jimmy Smith, up in the bank. This dude is really good. He's really talented. He's embraced all the challenges that come along with being a top pick, and he's shown us that this dude may be a true number 1 receiver. Now that he is established at that, we got to feed him. When you look at game plans and you look at the game and you see Doug Peterson and Press Taylor with this call sheet with all these things, what I would tell you is that somewhere in the top right corner, bottom right corner, there should be a little column that says, get the ball to number 7. Should be 6 to 8 plays where the ball can go right to him right away. Isolation route, hitch, slant, smoke, bubble screen, reverse, end around, something to keep him engaged. I want Brian Thomas Jr. to touch the ball early and often because he has the biggest impact. Next, I would say before he got hurt, Christian Kirk was that guy. But now that he's hurt and is on IR, he's not available, I would say the next person has to be Evan Ingram. Now, the thing about Evan Ingram is you'll see the volume of catches, but you won't see the yards that you typically want from a tight end, averaging 8-9 yards per catch. You want to kind of push that over double digits because that means he's accumulating some first downs and doing some of those things. It also means that we're incorporating him a little more down the field. We're having some explosive plays with the tight end. We want that to happen. So as we're ranking this, Brian Thomas Jr. is first, Evan Ingram is second when it comes to who should touch the ball and why. Now, after that, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to give you a surprise. Then you need to be able to run the football. You got to be able to run the football because you can control the game and make life easy for Trevor Lawrence. Running the football means not Travis Etienne is coming on to the field, but I would say Tank Bigsby should be the guy who is kind of occupying that lead role in the running back room. He's physical, he's tough, he's rough, he's been really good early in the year. He finishes runs, he has some violence to him. He's a tone and tempo setter for this offense. I want him to carry the ball. And so once we get past those 2 guys in the passing game, Tank Bigsby is the next most impactful player with a smattering of Travis Etienne. And Travis Etienne and Tank Bigsby, we can share the marquee. They can be co-RB1s. But what I would say is I want Tank Bigsby to run the ball hard between the tackles. I want Travis Etienne to be the guy that's on the edges and catching the ball out the backfield. Collectively, they're kind of like Voltron. They kind of come together and make it happen. But I want to make sure that those 4 guys are getting the ball in any order. And then here's what I'll say. The compliments, the other guys, they're guys that the ball just has to find them. So when I talk about Gabe Davis, despite the hefty contract, I would say that the ball just has to find him. I don't know if I'm scripting or diagramming plays specifically for him to have a touch. He hasn't proven enough early this season to warrant that kind of respect and that kind of attention on the call sheet. So I'm going to make him prove it before we kind of say, hey, we can go there. So tight end, number 1 receiver, both running backs, the ball should go to them early and often. And anybody else who eats, they're eating the scraps. But the main entrees are the guys that we mentioned. Offensive line-wise, continue to get them going, continue to try to play to their strengths. The running game has helped them. They appear to be a better unit when they're going forward as opposed to retreating and pass blocking. So let's keep running the football going forward, and then let's complement that with some play-action pass concepts that allow BTJ, maybe even Gabe Davis, to sneak behind the defense on these vertical shots for the home run plays this offense needs. If we do those things, if we find a way to shore that up, particularly with the offensive line, still kind of put it together after Cam Robinson's departure, you feel good about it. Now, I know the injuries changed some stuff. Cooper Hodges going out. We're waiting on Ezra Cleveland to come back. Brendan Scherf is kind of always on that line. You get Anton Harrison dealing with an injury. Despite the beat-up nature of the unit is playing pretty well as a team. I want to continue to build upon that as we think about fixing this offense. Good offensive line play, giving Trevor Lawrence the things that he needs to be successful in terms of the playbook, the plays, letting him be aggressive. And then finally, the personnel and the pecking order. You do those things, you got a chance to fix the offense. So let's talk about fixing the defense. When I think about the defense and I think about what this defense is supposed to be, I would say that Ryan Nielsen kind of laid it on the platter. In the offseason, he talked about nothing cheap, nothing deep. They wanted to be a team that was a shell defense. They wanted to play like a cover 4 look where it looks like too deep. Corners are pressed. They're pressed because they're discouraging anyone from throwing the quick passes, the bubble screens, the quick isolation routes, and those things. But they're in a position to play top-down defense and man-to-man to eliminate the deep ball. And as he said, he wanted to have an attack mentality while also being, I would say, schematically safe when it comes to being able to do some of these things. He wanted to make sure that this unit ran to the football, they knocked people around, they got people out. When I look at it, after 9 games, it hasn't been what we thought it would be. We thought it would be a lot better. We thought with, the money that was paid to Tyson Campbell, Josh Hines-Allen, the continued development and evolution of Trayvon Walker, Foye Oluokun, continue to be the leader in the middle, and maybe I would say like a perfect scheme for Andre Cisco that this team had enough blue chip players to be able to get it done. Wrong on that. Hasn't been like that. Hasn't played out like that. It just has not worked to the way that we thought it was. And so what's crazy is, and I know preseason games don't count, but they certainly matter. Man, when I watched this team in the preseason, I thought the defense was going to be good. They played fast. It was simple. They were getting to it. And I know it was all the vanilla looks that you see from the opponent, but it just wasn't it was so good that I thought it would carry over. And then when I saw him in the opener against the Miami Dolphins, the first half was so good. I was like, man, this is it. But it seemed like everything went awry after Tyreek Hill caught an 80-yard pass down in Miami, helped them come back. They eventually win the game. And a lot of the confidence that had been built up throughout the course of the offseason and training camp all went out the window. And this unit has not necessarily played the same since. Yeah, they played okay against Cleveland, but we're now seeing that Cleveland was an inept offense, particularly when Deshaun Watson was leading them. When I look at this team, because to be in attack mode, as Ryan Nielsen wants to be, you got to be able to stop the run first, but then you got to be able to rush the passer and you got to be able to cover it down the field. And when I look at what the Jags are doing, number one thing we talk about stopping the run, they're giving up 125 rushing yards per game, giving up 4.4 yards per attempt on the ground. They've given up 11 rushing touchdowns. Those numbers are too big because when we talk about stopping the run, we're talking about holding opponents to fewer than 100 yards so you can dictate the terms of the game and force them to throw on long yardage situations where you can load the coverage up and it's beneficial to the defense. Haven't been able to do that. When you look at offensively what they've been able to do against the passing game, teams are averaging 8.2 yards per pass attempt while also putting up 264 passing yards per game. When you think about this team is almost giving up 400 yards. I mean, they're giving up 400 yards per game. That is bananas. Bananas. Too many yards. You can't, it's hard to overcome that. So they're giving up over 400 yards per game on offense. The team is giving up 28 points per game. Now, some of that, a couple of performances they played bad, got away from them. Buffalo in particular, the game got away from them, never had an answer for it. And so it's messed up the metrics. But even in saying that, if we talked about we're going to stop the run, we're going to take away the deep throw, we can take away the deep throws and the cheap throws, we should be able to play great defense. We're failing in all those areas. So if I'm going to fix the Jags defense, the first thing we got to do is we got to stop the run. And that's on Devon Hamilton, for Khan, Devin Lloyd, those guys that are playing in the interior triangle, they got to get those stops on early downs. When teams are running the football, you have to stop them right away so you can force them into second and third and long situations. Because the Jaguars aren't doing that, they're now tasked with facing these offenses in what we call mixed down situations, which are never good. 2nd and 5, you can do anything. You can run it, you can throw it. You're never able to dictate the terms to the opponent. And because you can't control the game on the ground, makes it very, very difficult for your defense to kind of step up. Now, I will say this because this unit is different. Roy Robinson Harris traded away early in the year. You're sitting here thinking Eric Armstead, upon signing, we thought that he would be inside, Trayvon Walker, Josh Allen on the outside. We were really excited about it. Little did we know that Eric Armstead was signed to play defensive end, a position that is new to him, not his normal position when he was with the Niners. And it's one where he has not kind of given the impact that we thought he would give, even though he's been solid, but not impactful. We want to see more from that. So the Jaguars are now just stuck with a defense that is unable to stop the run. They cannot consistently rush the passer because they only have 2 guys that are being able to get home consistently. And I would say that is Josh Allen and Trayvon Walker, who both have been solid when it comes to the pass rush. I would say, in fact, better than solid, because when I look at them, they actually are playing pretty well. Like they're giving the effort, they're making plays, they're getting in the paint, they're doing those things. Trayvon Walker, 6.5 sacks. Josh Allen, 5 sacks. That's great. But there's no one else that's contributing. There's no one else. When you look at this list, there are a bunch of singles and doubles. You know, Devin Lloyd has a sack for you. Leroy Khan has a sack. Eric Armstead has 1. Robinson Harris isn't here anymore. He had 2. Mason Smith, 1. Jordan Jefferson. That's cool. That's not good enough to be a dominant team, not the team that they want to be. So we got to fix that. We got to get better production, better performance from the front line guys. And I'm going to say this. The problem that you have if you're Ryan Nielsen, because the way that you would, I would say, supplement or upgrade the pass rush is you would blitz some. Well, if you blitz some, then you got to do more one-on-one coverage on the perimeter, more man-to-man, which is what you wanted to do at the beginning of the year, but unit has struggled with that. To the point, when you think about the Jaguars coverage, the Jaguars passer rating allowed right now is 113.4. That is the highest passer rating in the league. If it held up, it would be the highest passer rating in the league since the New Orleans Saints surrendered 116.2 in 1970. Think about that. Highest in the league since the New Orleans Saints in 1970. You got to remember, in the 70s, they weren't even throwing the ball. So that is bad, bad, bad. Now, I would say this, like watching this team, and I like the personnel. I like some of the guys. Tyson Campbell is solid. I wouldn't say that he's an elite corner, but he's solid. Ronald Darby has been a solid corner at times throughout this league, but he's on the backside of his career. Buster Brown showed promise when Tyson Campbell was away, showed that he might be the guy that could be a starter opposite Campbell as they go forward. He's competitive and feisty in those things. Jarian Jones and the nickel, cool. Darnell Savage, want more. Physicality, tackling, the toughness, question marks. Can give you more, has to do it. Andre Cisco, up and down, roller coaster. Some good, some bad, some interceptions and plays, some plays that you want back, some missed tackles that were costly. Those things haven't gotten that effort. And so when I talk about the pass rush not being able to get home because we can't stop the run on early downs, then in the back end, we can't cover. It's a recipe for disaster. The other part that might be the missing link to why this team has not played great on the second level is, man, like too many times we're playing man-to-man and we got guys who are unable to hold up in their matchup. Devin Lloyd is too big to be matching up with some of these running backs in space. Too big. Playing Mike linebacker, I get it. He's a physical specimen. He's former first-round pick, but he hasn't played great. He still can't cover great. That's an issue. So now you got to cover him up by having a safety keep his eyes there, which then makes the team vulnerable other areas. When you don't have the personnel right, it makes it hard to execute the scheme, and that leads to vulnerabilities and big plays. So I say all this to say, how can we fix the defense? One, the defense is already pretty simple. When I hear these guys talk about the adjustments, I mean, it's pretty simple. It's like almost high school in terms of the way that they're talking to the players and giving them the plan and those things. This is a team to be in a heavy man-to-man team. And I would say athletically, not quite built to be a man-to-man team, but I would say instincts-wise, awareness, situational awareness-wise, can't say that it's the best team playing in zone. So if you're Ryan Nielsen, you're stuck because you can't get home with 4 with just Trayvon Walker and Josh Hines Allen getting after the quarterback. So now you're hodgepodging, little man, little zone. And the more that you do, the more likely communication errors pop up and guys are running free, which is what we're seeing. The other thing that we're seeing is when we're in man-to-man too much, they eventually crack the code and someone gives up a big play. Last week it was Ronald Darby. Other times it's been other guys, but that's what's happening. In critical moments, they're finding ways to take advantage of a matchup. We also saw it I think early in the Eagles game, Darnell Savage gave up one to Saquon Barkley on an over-the-shoulder catch, which was great throw and catch, but that's part of the issue. So man and zone, you don't know what to do. Some would say hey, why don't you focus on being a really good team in between the 20s? Don't let the ball fly in front. Play good zone defense. Spend more time on Thursdays and Fridays working on your red zone defense with all your tricks in a tightened, condensed area where the quarterback can't take advantage of the field to create opportunities. That might be a better plan. When you think about the example would be like Gus Bradley and how the Indianapolis Colts play. Don't measure them by the yards, measure them by the points they surrender. And they're a team that is willing to concede yards, but not big plays, and it allows them to stay in games. The Jaguars should be able to follow a similar blueprint, but the teaching and I would say the reception, meaning from the players, has to be right. If they receive it right, if they learn it right, and if they're prepared, the plays are there to be made as this team maybe shifts from more man to more zone and they line up and play. The other thing, Ryan Nielsen has to figure out how can I selectively rush the opponent with pressure without exposing my guys to bad matchups. So does that mean we become more of a zone blitz team as opposed to a man blitz team? Does that mean that maybe we do more of these what they call hot zones where we're sending 6, but we got eyes on the quarterback and we're just kind of playing into open windows? Doesn't mean we're willing to kind of drop our onions and go after folks and play cover 0 man-to-man and see if we can force the ball out. Whatever the pass rush plan is, whatever the blitz plan is, we got to start mixing some of that in there because without hitting the quarterback or disrupting his rhythm, opponents are too good for the Jaguars in the back end. They haven't been able to cover them. And because we can't rush them one-on-one consistently, it has been a problem. Ryan Nielsen, the coaching staff, they got to get together, put together a multifaceted plan that allows them stop the run, change the front, take away the deep balls and those things in the pass game while being simple enough for the players. Huge task to try and take on in the middle of the season, but the Jaguars certainly can pare down some of the stuff, make the shift from man to zone, keep the ball in front, and allow their offense hopefully to get hot and make plays and save them in games. So that was a quick little thing coming to the mechanic, trying to talk about how we can fix the Jaguars so they can play better down the stretch. Offense starting out faster, finishing in the red zone, putting points on the board. Defense just getting off the field and being able to create some splash plays, some turnovers to help this offense take advantage of the extra opportunities. If you get that done, maybe the Jaguars can kind of start winning some games down the stretch. Remember to keep tuning in to Bleav in Jaguars. Tell a friend to tell a friend about the cool podcast that we have talking about our Jaguars. And also check out some of the content that some of my colleagues are doing at Bleav. You can check that out on YouTube. You can check that out on Fubo, all of those auxiliary channels to make sure you're seeing the latest and greatest stuff that we're putting up. Also, download the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. It's a lot of fun to hear some of the guys talking about their favorite teams, some of those teams that might be playing a little better than our beloved Jaguars. Until next time, I'm Bucky Brooks. This is Bleav in Jaguars. I'm out.